So first thing I will say is thank you very much for joining me. I'm delighted that this all stemmed just from an Instagram chat over plates in a FlyFit gym, and it's progressed onto having you here on the podcast. So you're very welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for the invite. Delighted to be here.
Well, listen, this is what I was saying, like I said before we start rolling, the fact that we could uphold a really high standard of conversation over the course of a couple of months, I suppose, at this stage, just talking about powerlifting, different things to do with the gym, culture in the gym, as you've mentioned before, like bringing that social element, you're trying to branch out and meet new people in the gym, other lifters and things like that, like, which is massive advocate for. I think it's mad that we managed to get to this point. So what I'd like to start with is on the basis of that, I know we have talked about, you've mentioned being kind of introverted before in the gym setting, am I right?
Yeah.
And you're now since making an active effort to engage with other people, particularly if you see them engaging in like squat, bench, deadlift or wearing a pair of SBDs, it's kind of a dead giveaway. So what efforts have you made and where did that all start from? What prompted that?
In terms of like getting more sociable in the gym, like I'd always see other people and like they seemed to just like know everybody in the gym, and like the gym was somewhere I spent like a lot of time. Like I loved training, but I felt like I just struggled to get into like any kind of like community vibe in the gym, and that made me really sad because I felt like a lot of people talked about the gym as this social setting, especially when you're listening to people who've been in the game a lot longer as coaches. Like they talked about how the gym was always their biggest source of community, and I've heard those people kind of lament how it's gotten more and more antisocial over the years. Like we've all got our headphones in, we're all just like doing our own thing, and we see it less as like a family or community vibe and more of a just, this is me improving myself, I'm out here as a lone wolf. And I feel like it wasn't really until powerlifting that I was given the ability or like a clear path to creating that community, because I guess like it's hard to just walk up to someone in the gym and be like, hello, my name's Richeal, nice to meet you. Like that doesn't go down so well. Like it's when you have some common ground that it's a lot easier to just like make some connections. So I suppose I just started to make more of an effort. Like if I saw somebody who was like squatting, benching or deadlifting, like maybe I'd compliment their lift. Or if I saw somebody had like some SBD gear, I'd be like, oh, hey, like, do you compete? And since making more of an effort in that regard, I feel like when I go to the gym, I'm more like, oh, I'll probably see someone here today. Like I've been working all day and like they might not be like my best friend in the whole world, but there's somebody that I can reliably have a nice chat with and that will just like fill my cup socially. And I think our society is getting less and less like that. Like even younger people, they prefer to go to like the self-checkout aisle instead of like having that like chat with the person who's working in the shop. And that's really not good for us. Like we need that like light touch social contact with other people. It doesn't always have to be like your best friend or like your boyfriend or your family, like, but like those like lighter contacts, like people who are acquaintances, that's really, really important. So I'm happy that started to grow for me through this sport.
I think that is one of the things that powerlifting does foster. I know when I entered the sport, Jay Farrance, the guy who runs Abs Powerlifting, he was very much while you are out there competing by yourself on the platform, no one's lifting the weight for you. It is very much a team sport. It's very much you train as a group, as a society, or as a club. And it's great that you are, in your own way, trying to foster that yourself in a FlyFit Sallynoggin.
Yes.
You know, so FlyFit Sallynoggin powerlifters. But like that, even that, especially after the last couple of years, I know it must be a tough ask to go over and approach someone to just even say, hey, like, you know, nice bench or whatever. But like, I mean, there's practical elements to that as well. If you can get to know people, because I know for myself, I've got people in the gym that I stalk that I know are good spotters. You know what I mean? I'm like, he knows what he's doing. I'm going to get him to give me a lift off. So like that, there are practical benefits to it as well. I think like knowing people you can rely on to ask those things, or even to watch your set if they know what they're talking about, that's a massive thing. But as you mentioned, the social aspects are such an important part of not just the gym, but like day-to-day life that I think have, particularly as I mentioned over the past couple of years, been somewhat diminished. And I think that's a massive net negative. I think you'll agree. But I'm loving that you're getting that back. You've mentioned also as well, your co-athletes training under your coach Shane's story. You guys are, you know, while maybe not an official group or club, you guys stay in contact, you gas each other up, you're checking out each other's lifts, you communicate regularly. So I'm sure that's also massively beneficial to have that too.
Yeah, no, that's massive. I think especially considering like we're all training on our own for the most part, like having people who are there and who can share in like the highs and also the lows, like someone you can talk to like when you have a shit week with your bulk or something like that. Or if like a lift just doesn't go according to plan, like that is what makes you feel like you've got those people around you like on the day, and that like you're sharing in this journey with other people. So that is absolutely huge. And I think powerlifting is quite unique in how it can offer that to people. Because unlike other sports, like, yes, like you could find a football team, right? But like there might not be one that's nearby you, or like you might not vibe with the people, or the time that that team trains at might not suit your work schedule. So like there's a lot of like barriers to entry in terms of finding a community. Whereas by comparison, because of the individual nature of powerlifting, it's something that you can quite easily share with others, because other people are going to be looking to share in that journey, because they're also like, okay, like I'm out here on my own. I want to build this group around me so that this feels like a team experience, even though it's an individual sport. So I think it's something where others are very much incentivized to try and create that like community around them, because it's not inherent unless you're training a club.
Well, that's something I found across in my own gym. So I'm sure people watching at home know I train and work in Fly Fit Swords, and I have a really strong community of lifters there who have all since gotten to know each other. So like that, I've come in some days doing my own thing, and a couple of my lifters will be training together, which is awesome to see, because not only is there like, obviously for me, the benefit of my clients keeping each other consistent, or my athletes keeping each other consistent, but there's also then what that fosters in them. They enjoy coming to the gym more. They look forward to seeing each other. I've two girls that I used to coach. One of them I'm just programming at the moment, but the two of them have gone on holidays together and all. They're not specifically powerlifters, but like that, being the kind of pillar in a community and watching how that branches out is such a phenomenal thing. And I'm loving that that's something you're trying to foster yourself and are conscious of it. Like, so I know leading into, and we're kind of skipping all over here, but we'll circle back around to these things. I know you are coaching people into AB Series 11, which is happening in a couple of weeks. I'd imagine that's an element you're trying to foster in your own athletes as well, to build this community under you. How many people do you actually have competing?
So I've got 3 people competing, which
amazing,
is so exciting. Like I feel like I you know, probably top 5 most exciting things that have ever happened to me in my life. Like I haven't sat down and written out the rest, but this is definitely one of them. Trying to foster the community thing, like it can be tough because, you know, I don't know if you've seen this in business, like the whole like creating a community thing can be overly forced. Like people trying to like make Facebook groups, and like they say like they have an amazing community, but if you went inside, it would be like, you know, very silent in there in terms of the interaction from the actual members. And I think that that's not to say that like it's a lack of effort on their part. It just speaks to how difficult it is. And I think that that community, like, it very often comes maybe after the people have done that first competition together. Yes. And then they've bonded, because it's an amazing experience when you're in it. Like to be there with somebody else who's also doing it for the first time, like that feeling like before your first squat, you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to shit myself with anxiety. Like, and you make it through, and then your friend goes out there, or like someone who's not even your friend yet, but like so your acquaintance or your teammate goes out there and they make it through as well. And like, that's a feeling and a bond that you'll always share with those people, because like, you know, you're just in it together, like, and it's such a unique experience.
Like you're dead right. I think as well, like as you mentioned, like you've got your 3 athletes coming in. I'd imagine after they have all competed together under the same brand or umbrella or under your coaching skills, they will have that mutual shared experience, mutual suffering. You know what I mean? They're all going to go into it super anxious and excited and all those emotions. It tends to bring out like, I think it brings out the best in people, because you're your most like raw when you're there, you know what I mean? Because everything has to come out somewhere. And I think seeing your fellow athletes or fellow lifters go through that similar experience, it does create a little bit of a bond. Like I know the guys that I train with, like some of my best friends, Mario Morelli, Vinny Chung, like I've lifted at the same competitions as these guys. I've handled and coached Vinny now for a good while, and he's like my favorite training partner because he just gets it. You know what I mean? He gets the way I like to train. He gives the best lift off ever. You know what I mean? So I think some of that comes from the fact that we've wrapped each other's knees. He'll gas me up before I walk out. I'll gas him up before he walks out. You know, we can be honest with each other if things are looking good, if things aren't looking so good, where to take appropriate jumps. And I think having that person is like such an invaluable thing if you can get it, if you can foster it. So I'm super glad you're bringing more people into the sport as well, because I think everyone should try powerlifting at least once.
I 100% agree. I think like I am obsessed with the idea of powerlifting as like the best sport for someone to try as an adult if they've never done a sport before. Like, I think that a lot of stuff like football or even a fighting sport, it is quite difficult to find your feet in that if you're not good to begin with. It's very demoralizing. Like if you're on a football team and you're the worst by a million miles because everyone else has kind of been playing their whole lives, like, and they're maybe picking it up again in adulthood. Like, it's hard for you to get your time on the field to improve. Or if you're in a fighting sport, like, even if there's other beginners there, if you're like markedly the worst, like, you're going to get your ass kicked every single time. And yes, you can rise up from that and like put in the work and continue to improve. But I feel like the satisfaction and the joy isn't as much front-ended as it is in powerlifting. Whereas in powerlifting, like, you have your time to shine on the platform. And even if you're the weakest person there, there's no one on the platform at the same time as you. So when you're up there, like, the crowd is going to cheer for you so hard if you're putting in your 100% effort. And you don't feel as though you're being compared to someone else or as though you get less practice than other people because you're not as good, if you get what I mean.
100%. Like, that's exactly it. And I think you said it best, because that was one thing I wanted to cross the bridge with. I think there's a lot of people get hung up on how much weight they lift when they're coming into powerlifting. Oh, like, I don't want to be the weakest person there. I have this it's like one of those core memories now where I was emceeing Abs Teens, and there was this one kid who like missed his 2 deadlifts, his 2 first and second attempts. He got them up, but he was like hitching the bar. He wasn't locking his knees. But like, all his friends were in the front row. And he came out for his third, and this was obviously for him to stay in the competition and get a total. And everybody got up to cheer for him. Jay was hanging out I think he was up on commentary, he was hanging out shouting for the guy. And it was like that. Like, again, it wasn't that he was lifting a world record weight or he was pulling for the win. It was just for him to, you know, to lock in his first official platform total. Like, and the place blew up when he got it, you know. Another example I have of this is, I mentioned Vincent Chung a couple of minutes ago. One of my mates, he recently, his most recent comp, Ab Series 9, he got his 400 dots, which got him into the 9 a.m. crew for Sunday for abs, which is something he's wanted since he started there. And his third pull, it came down to his last deadlift. Like, if he'd missed the last deadlift, he was short by like 2 dots. So he got it, but he just got it. But I remember everyone on the platform was up. He was up. Jay was screaming up in the commentary. It was such a great moment. And it was like, he pulled 227.5. You know what I mean? Something like, or 222.5 or something like that. Like, it's, again, we've got lads there that are pulling near 400 kilos. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily about the weight on the bar. It's what it means to the person and the moment. And that's, I think, the real magic of it. Because you've mentioned before when we were chatting about, like, and I agree, like, powerlifting is such a great first sport for adults. As we've mentioned already, as you've mentioned, it's such a low barrier to entry. It doesn't have a massive amount of requirements on people, like, physically, in terms of you don't have to be any specific shape to do it. You don't have to be any particular level of fitness. You have to learn to do 3 things, which I think most people can do in the gym anyway. So I think fostering that and trying to get people into that sport, into the idea that they could compete in something, and even if whatever about everybody else, they can improve markedly themselves between competitions, will ultimately yield something really good at the end. It's not that they have to stay in it forever, but just so they can see themselves what they're capable of. Yeah,
for sure. And I think if you're somebody who didn't compete in sport when you're younger, like, there's a pretty high chance that, like, maybe you weren't that physically gifted and, like, you're put off from engaging in physical activity, and, like, you might have some kind of hang-ups. Like, I certainly know that I had a lot of hang-ups about, like, not being someone who's athletic. Like, growing up, like, I wouldn't say I was unfit. Like, my parents did a pretty good job of differentiating between, like, you can be active even if you're not sporty. So, like, we were brought up, like, hiking, like, walk places, like, instead of driving all the time, that kind of stuff. Cycling. So I never had a hang-up necessarily about, like, being unfit, but I always just felt, like, so intimidated by physical activities and sports because of being extremely uncoordinated. Like, I just I literally can still remember the feeling of being like 8 years old in a Gael school trying to play hurling and Gaelic because they're like basically required to be part of the social fabric of the school, and being so shit. Like so shit. And like when you're younger, like I suppose you don't understand as much. Like some people just have certain gifts and other people have others. And it's not really an environment where you're going to be given like a helping hand to improve, because it's a team environment. Like it has to move at a certain pace. Like you have to consider the well-being of the whole team. And I think in Ireland, we have such a focus on team sports for kids. So lots of people grow up as adults and they just have it as part of their identity that they're not fit and they're not athletic. And if you have a huge limiting belief like that, it's something that will start holding you back in areas of your life. Like even if you say you don't want to be like a pro athlete or anything like that, like your friend might be like, let's go climbing or something like that. And you're gonna be like, oh no, but like I wouldn't be good, or like I couldn't do that. I know one that a lot of people have is public speaking, for example. So like lots of people have like this like fear of public speaking, or this idea of themselves that like they couldn't possibly do something like be on a podcast or like give a presentation at work. And it's not that they want to be like a motivational speaker for a career, but like sometimes things will come up and they will be like, oh no, but like much as I would love to say be a part of this charity, it involves talking to crowds. So I can't pursue this thing I'm passionate about because I have this limiting belief in this area, like that I feel I'm not competent. So I think engaging with a sport, especially if you're somebody who grew up not believing in your physical capabilities, can have such a transformative effect on your life as a whole. Because once you smash through a limiting belief like that, if you have other ones, even if they're like, say, more minor, you just know that like work can overcome anything like that with enough time. And I think that powerlifting provides the perfect, I guess, environment for that, because it's skill-based, but it's like highly, highly, highly repetitive. Whereas like other sports, like say my boyfriend does jiu-jitsu, and it's like the opposite of repetitive. Like it's so dynamic. Like every time you go to grapple, is that the correct word? He's probably laughing at me right now. Whenever you like are sparring, maybe we'll go with that, with somebody, like it's going to be different every single time. So like your ability to like learn that physical skill in practice, like I know they do drills and stuff, but like the main game is inherently dynamic, whereas powerlifting, it's like very, very repetitive. So if you're somebody who struggles with like motor learning and you don't think you're particularly athletic, you're going to get the chance to like practice leg drive like hundreds of times in exactly the same situation. And then that teaches you that you can learn these physical skills if given enough time. It teaches you to be patient with yourself. And I don't know, I've been rambling on this point for so long, but I just think if you haven't competed in a sport and you're an adult, it's something you should definitely consider doing, because it genuinely could change your whole life.
No, well, firstly, thank you for giving such an elaborate point, because this is the point with everything we're doing here. Like, I think people have heard me talk just enough. You know what I mean? So it's great that you have such great insight, and you're obviously very passionate about it, which I love. And there was something you said there that was essentially taking the words right out of my mouth. In Ireland, we do have this overemphasis, just a massive emphasis on team sports. And team sports, just with the nature of how they are very top down. So it doesn't matter if you're the kid at the front or the kid at the back, you're all told to do the same thing, you know? And that really takes, like, yeah, sure, maybe 80 to 90% of the kids or young people or whatever are going to get on fine, but it's always going to leave those few stragglers who are going to feel very, very demotivated by the experience. And it's no fault of the coaches necessarily. If they've 20 people to train, they can't worry about, you know, the one or two people who are just not catching up. They have to just push them to try and keep up with everybody else. But ultimately, that could have long-term ramifications on their motivation to participate in physical activity. And that is one of the best things about powerlifting. You can really adopt this bottoms-up approach and say, where are you at right now? You know, it doesn't matter if you're a middle-aged office worker that's, you know, barely takes 4,000 steps a day and has never been in a gym in your life. We can still start somewhere. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the best things about it. Like, I'll actually, to go off on a little tangent here, just something to do with field sports. I have a massive amount of respect for like things like the GAA and the emphasis we have on those sports in this country. But I was on the Sports Ireland campus a couple of months ago, and I was with Setanta College, and we are doing a workshop, and they had this like mural on the GA development hall or whatever, the place you go in to do the workshops, and it had like this career path for young GA athletes, and it starts you off like, it was like 7 to 8 or something like that, like fundamental skills, and it goes up, but it said like retirement was 22. Do you know what I mean? Like imagine hitting your early 20s and you're retiring from sports. You know what I mean? I think that's, and especially if you were in it that long, such a key part of your identity. And I don't know about you, but I know a good few people that played a lot of field sports when they were younger. They end up leaving college. They come out of college. Now they're out of sports. They're out of college. They're into a job where they know nobody. They don't have a massive social circle. They don't have any physical outlet. And it's kind of like this spiral then until they hit their 30s. And then, you know, they could be a complete, you know, well, I used to bench 140 kilos, you know what I mean? So, and I think we've actually talked about that ourselves, like how there, like we were going on about social circles in the gym and building social connections, and how we don't foster that enough in adults after they've left the college space. And I know you had thoughts on that. I'm really interested in that. So I'm gonna ask you to elaborate what you think while I drink some water.
Yeah, I'm definitely very passionate about the idea that people need more outlets for making friends into adulthood. Like when you go to school, like plenty of people your age around with like lots in common with you. When you go to college, same thing again. But then once you go into the workplace, it's basically just like people you work with and then acquaintances. And that's super narrow in terms of like the number of different people that you can potentially form relationships with. And like relationships and having strong relationships is so underrated when it comes to your physical health. Like I won't get too much in the weeds, but there is like now scientific research showing like how much of a detrimental impact a lack of strong relationships and like a feeling of loneliness can have on someone's physical health. Like I think a lot of us would recognize that it would definitely have an impact on your mental health, but that interplay between the mental and physical is a lot stronger than a lot of us are recognizing. And when we talk about health and we talk about fitness, we so often talk about just like exercise and nutrition. And then more recently, we're starting to talk about things like stress management and sleep. But how often do you hear people say the strength of your relationships and finding community? How often do you hear people talk about that in the context of a pillar stone of good health? Mm-hmm. Pillar stone?
You're dead right. It is. It's one of the. It's something I try to talk to clients about a lot. Like, you know, coming to the gym and getting in better shape. It's not just move less, move more, eat less. It's, you know, especially when it comes to food, let's just say, or exercise, you know, your experience with it, your how you've grown up with it, your socioeconomic status, your support network currently. And I think that's one people misunderstand. I'll get into that in a sec. But a massive one then as well is like, I've lost my train of thought now. I knew I'd do that. Like, so basically, you mentioned there, it's like a pillar in the social, that's what it is. Dan, you're going to have to edit this bit a little bit. Sound man. Social health and social bonds and having a good support network is such a massive piece of what helps people not only consistently go after what it is ever they're trying to achieve, whether that's a long-term goal or a progressive goal over time, but as you mentioned, their long-term physical and mental health, which I think sometimes we do tend to disconnect as two different things, but like human beings are quite complex. Adam Phillips from Odyssey Strength has a really cool phrase about this. He says, powerlifting is simple, people are complex. And that's how he approaches programming. And I have a lot of respect for that. Like,
yeah, I think on the like health and community thing, this is a bit of a segue, but related. I don't know if you've ever noticed as a personal trainer that a big barrier for a lot of people trying to improve their habits is the fact that the people around them maybe have different habits and that they feel by trying to improve their health or like, you know, drink less or like engage in exercise more, like eat healthier, they are inherently excluding themselves from social situations that are often based around the opposite of this stuff. So we've talked about how community can improve your physical health through like intrinsic things, through like reducing loneliness, but then also through like the habits that you pick up from the people around you. And like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of people have difficulty in terms of being peer pressured, like resistance from the people around them when they want to change their lifestyle. So I think something that powerlifting can definitely offer people is a community where those things are valued. Now, powerlifters don't always value health to the highest, but I suppose, you know, choose your poison.
Shots fired.
Maybe if we can get them to do some more cardio.
I'm a massive advocate for that. I do agree. Do you know, you mentioned that, and I've got this like memory that sticks out of a conversation I had with a client, and he had pulled 200 for a triple in training, and it was really, really good. And we had a video. I was like, man, you should post that online. That was excellent. Like that's such a thing to be proud of. He's like, post it online. And his girlfriend, who I also coach, was nearby, and he was like, come here. He's like, Ian said I should post this online. He's like, the lads would rip me apart if I posted anything of me in the gym. And I was like, but why? Like, it's such a good thing. That's like a massive feat of strength. Like, he's like, no, they wouldn't be having a bar of that. Like, same as you mentioned, even when it comes to like social events. And I think that it's a form of self-exclusion to a degree. I've had this dialogue with athletes I train at the moment as well. Like, I've got a guy and a girl I train, and he's trying to gain and she's trying to lose. All right. So this is like really, really difficult dynamic. So I've had to try and explain to him that sometimes being part of a good support network for her isn't, whenever she's like, oh yeah, I want to get this, it's saying, no, I don't think we should do that. I think we shouldn't get the McDonald's because I know it's really important to you that you want to cut. So while it might be that initial sting, in the long run, it's more beneficial for you to not give in that moment, you know? But it's trying to capture that dynamic between the same for her. It's like she realizes he's trying to gain. He's struggling with it a little bit, like trying to eat enough to gain. And, so she'll sometimes say, oh, it's grand, just, eat more later. It's like, no, maybe give him that encouragement. Say, oh, no, it's, you want to achieve this, do it now. And he might be initially uncomfortable, but it might help him. It might be the support he needs, a little prompt he needs, and that little bit extra of accountability he needs to help him achieve his goals. And sometimes I think people will give in somewhere like, they like, have just one drink. Just have one with me. And like, all right, I have one. And then one turns into however many. And you end up waking up the next day going, bollocks, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's mad. Like, I think a lot of people, they don't want people in their life to change their habits like for the better, because then they feel it like shines some kind of light
Holds
on
up a
them.
mirror.
Yeah. So like they're like, well, I can't have this drink if this person isn't having one, because, well, first of all, that's going to make me feel bad that I'm having a drink when someone else has abstained. And second of all, then I'm going to be the drunk idiot and they're going to be observing me as the sober one. Mm. And I think like in Ireland, that's such a huge problem for people, where they like, maybe some people do want to cut back on their drinking, but they feel that they can't because they're constantly being peer pressured. I don't know if you've spoken to your clients about this, but something that comes up a lot for me as a coach is like how to navigate social situations so you don't get peer pressured into drinking more. And I suppose like this is not meant to be like an anti-alcohol rant or anything like that, like, all in moderation. But at the same time, I think we are in desperate need of more social activities as adults that are not centered around alcohol. And one thing that's really good about training is it tends to create like this inherent moderating effect around alcohol. Like I've noticed, even if someone's not intentionally saying, I'm going to cut down on my drink by X number of drinks per week, there's just that little extra thing in the back of their head. Say if they're out on Saturday night having like a couple of drinks with friends, it's so much less likely to get out of control when they're like, I have to be up in the morning to train. And that way it becomes something that's less of a sacrifice, because like, say if you're trying to reduce your drinking and you're not doing it in the name of something like training, it just feels like giving something up. Whereas when you have training and you have made that like, a pillar in your life that's really important to you, you're giving something up so you can have something else, i.e. the good and productive training session that doesn't feel like shit. And I think that the reason, like one of the major reasons why people drink so much, like, is because there's an absence of other things that might give them joy. So it's like, how can we start pursuing things as adults that give us a sense of adventure and a sense of joy? And I think that's one big thing about powerlifting, is it actually takes a lot of people who might be like a party animal or a bit wild, and it gives them something else to channel that like crazy energy into, because like a powerlifting meet is just like a giant party with your friends. Like, it has a very similar atmosphere to a music festival. And if you're somebody who needs that like sense of adventure and adrenaline in your life, it's a great way to get that without like, I guess, seeing all those other negative effects of like engaging in a wild lifestyle long term.
No, I completely agree. You've hit off a couple of really good points there I want to bring up, just specifically about powerlifting and competitions. Like that, knowing that you're working towards a specific date, a specific you're going to be on a platform. You're going to have to perform to some degree. So I know it kind of has that like goal-orientated or outcome-orientated idea, but I think it makes you much more process-orientated as a person. Like, right, well, I have 4 months to train. I'm going to do 4 sessions a week. If I don't miss any sessions, I'll get this much done. And I think it helps people stay super dialed in with training. But then it also, like you exactly said, right, I know I've had that because we train early in abs on a Sunday. If I go out for food or I go to see a movie, I will always say to myself, you know what, if I'm going to have anything, I'll have a non-alcoholic drink, you know? So I've tried 0% Guinness. It's the anti-crack, but it is the closest thing you can get to a Guinness without without ruining your training the next day. But this is exactly it. It's giving up that instant gratification for something that's going to come later and pay dividends potentially months down the road. Because you might make that decision. It might just seem like, yeah, right, I'm missing tomorrow and that's a bit crap, but I'm not going out later on with the lads. But over enough periods of time, not having those 4 drinks, 5 drinks, 6 drinks, whatever it might be, but you're doing that every week or every other week, that you're not taking things to that extent, your recovery's better, your training's better, your mindset around training is usually better. You're not going to dread your session the next day, or you're not going to skip it, or you're not going to delay it and defer it. Usually result in a much better day on the platform, and you'll usually have that payoff that all that potential, like small sacrifices along the way, were worth. Like everything and this is what people will say, a lot of these things, like, like, is it worth giving up all that? Whatever it might be, it's like, well, yeah, because everything at one end is going to be a sacrifice. You know, if you do go out and party all night Saturday and into Sunday morning, you're paying for it for likely a day or 2 or 3. So you're going to pay for it somewhere. So why not do it for something that ultimately gives you what you want in the long run? And I think most people listening, and yourself as well, will understand. I think most people do that. Most things that are worth having are not easy to attain. They're going to be at the other end of a lot of hard work. Like, even speaking for yourself with getting into powerlifting, like you are now prepping into a competition, like myself, we're prepping into IPF Last Chance, and the amount of work that's likely gone in since Ab Series that you last competed at to we're now, 7 weeks out? Oh, Jesus, that's scary. Like, you know, you've put in an immense amount of work, and it's very likely going to be, I'm not putting any pressure on you here, but it's probably going to be your best performance. Like, I've seen the videos you're posting online. You're flying with your training. You're repping your previous maxes, you know, things like that. So you have obviously made sacrifices along the way that will pay dividends on this date.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this prep has definitely been the most challenging one out of all of them to date, because I set the biggest and most challenging goal for myself that I have yet. And like the numbers, like I was letting them get to my head for a while. But I think that we talked about delayed gratification and how important it is to learn the ability to pursue delayed gratification. But I think something like even extending beyond that I've learned, well, I've learned it before, but I've learned it in, I guess, a deeper sense than ever before during this prep, is being okay with the chance of no reward and finding gratification in the process. When you've set a goal that is like, maybe you'll make that, maybe you won't. And like, you can't guarantee that, okay, like if I do all this work, I'll definitely get this thing. Like being okay with the fact that the reward was everything you learned during that process and everything you went through during that process. That's become something that's really, really important to me now more than ever in my own training. And it's something that I'm really thinking about as a coach. Like, how do I impart that mindset upon my clients? Because we can all get too results oriented in life. And so this is something I say to clients who are competing in powerlifting and also in other sports when things go badly for them. And I try and say it to myself as well. If you had the choice between getting the thing that you want most from the sport, like outcome based, say, whether that's like, I don't know, like competing at nationals or like hitting a certain total by the end of your powerlifting career, or all of the auxiliary benefits that you get along the way, like community, friends, personal growth, adventure, experience, you could only have one of them, right? Either you could have like the outcomes, the titles, the trophies, all that stuff, or the things that happen along the way. Genuinely, what would you choose?
I mean, I know which one I would choose.
Trophies, right?
I have actually won one trophy in powerlifting. It's a little teeny tiny helmet. But no, you're dead right. Like, I mean, it is that expression. It's like always got like the chase is usually better than the catch. The journey is usually the more the more rewarding than the destination. And I completely agree with that. Like, I know for me with this prep, you've mentioned yourself, you've had challenges during the prep. For me recently, like I've been contending with, like I got laser, I had a back injury, I got a really bad stomach flu. So there's been all these things I've had to overcome. So now to even be in the gym and hitting anywhere near like the weights I've lifted previously is already such a massive psychological win. Like, as I showed you before we started, I pulled the 265 deadlift today. I've been up since 4:30. I'm a little bit hungry. I'm a little bit tired. I'm only back from holidays. But like, there was no massive amount of thought that went into it. I was like, well, I'll go in and pull this today. And if it comes up well, it comes up well. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's like watching it back later, I was like, right, great. I can just walk into the gym and do that one day, which is, and I know there's, for context, there's people that will train for a very long time to pull anywhere near that weight. You know what I mean? So that's a massive win for me just to be even there. So even if we walk into Last Chance and I make a complete hames of it, it won't matter because I'm back lifting consistently much better than I was even when I competed. The last time I competed was April, and that was a really bad prep. So the idea now that I'm kind of back in the swing of things, feeling good, training's going well, that's a massive win for me. And I know, as you've mentioned before, you've had some struggles coming into the prep, and but like I said, from an exterior point of view, from an external point of view, I should say, it looks like things look really good. Like, I sometimes think that's hard for us to perceive as well because we're in our own heads all the time. But like, I've seen a bit of your growth as an athlete online. I was sneaking on your open powerlifting before we started, and like, there's like, that's such a massive amount of growth. And you know, we've gotten in pretty far here, and I think like everybody listening at home has seen that you've got some really interesting thoughts and ideas, and you're quite articulate. So I'd love to like explore some more of your background with them. I know you mentioned way before when we were talking that you had, when you were younger, did some distance running, but then you've come around into powerlifting. Like, I'd love to know how that happened. Like, obviously you were going to the gym in the meantime, but why powerlifting? What brought you there?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a slow burn for me. I suppose it started with lifting weights to begin with. So the thing that got me into lifting weights is actually a very peculiar story. I was traveling in Southeast Asia when I was 19, and I was just noticing that my lack of physical strength was really holding me back from certain things. Like, I was struggling with my bag, and there were actually a couple of dangerous situations that I felt like I was not in a good position to get out of because I wasn't strong. Like, we got chased by some very scary wild dogs in Southeast Asia a couple of times, me and the person I was traveling with.
Holy shit.
Yeah, no, this is
That's mildly terrifying.
Yeah, I told this story to someone in an interview once, and they said, this is like a superhero origin story. And I was like, yeah. So basically we got chased by some very scary wild dogs. And the person I was traveling with was a guy, and he has like a phobia of dogs. So I don't blame him for this. But he was able to pull himself up onto a wall because he had like upper body strength from doing resistance training. And I had zero upper body strength. So I had to stay and scare off the wild dog on my own. So I was kind of like, okay, like thinking about this over in my head. And I was like, why was I so helpless in this situation? Obviously, I was able to use other skills to get out of that. But I was just thinking, like, guys are encouraged to be strong, right? That's like a thing from a young age. I mean, like, I'm not a guy, so you can probably speak to this better than me. But like, that's something you're told from pretty much when you become a teenager. Like, it's important to be strong. Like, you probably have like an older brother or like a friend who might encourage you to get into lifting weights. Like, that's seen as like a cornerstone of masculinity and like what it means to be a man. And like, maybe you can critique that and say it shouldn't be, but I think it should be an important thing for all humans, right?
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, it's such an important life skill. And I was thinking, like, it's so silly that I don't have this, and like other people have been encouraged to have this. So like, I'm gonna try and get strong because I don't like feeling helpless, or I don't like feeling incapable. Mm-hmm. So I started actually lifting weights while I was traveling on that holiday. We like visited a couple of gyms, and that kind of got, like, I guess I dipped my toe in the water, but it was like very minimal. Like, it was very unstructured. And it wasn't until the year after that somebody I knew like introduced me to 531. So I just like started doing 531. Like, honestly, like, I wasn't in the online lifting culture at all. Like, I didn't really know much. I think I started following a couple of powerlifters on Instagram because this person was like, check out this person, they're so strong, it's so cool, or whatever. But like, I was still just like pretty whimsical with it. Like, I know a lot of people when they start lifting, they get really obsessed really early on, but like I was doing other hobbies at the time. Like I was doing competitive debating like a good nerd in college, and I didn't have as much like time or financial resources to commit to lifting. So I actually considered joining abs at the time, and I was like, I need this money to like go competitively argue with people in other countries. I need this time to go learn about, I don't know, like foreign affairs so that I can win debates. So I just kind of kept lifting away for like a couple years after that. And it wasn't until during the pandemic, and I feel like I was like really lacking like a sense of community, like most people. I'd also just left university. And I was really lacking a sense of adventure. I think that's a really important part here. I asked my friend who competes in strongman and powerlifting, like, okay, like maybe I want to do this powerlifting thing. Like, I feel like I need some structure around my training. What do you recommend? And he showed me the abs powerlifting Instagram page. And like from the moment I saw those videos and I saw like the smoke machines, the lights, like the crazy music, like I was like, I have to do that. That looks so fun. Like everyone's life was so dry during the pandemic. And I was like, that is the opposite of dry. So I need to do that. So I had that in the back of my head, and I was working in a gym at the time, and they set up like a mock meet for like around Christmas. So everyone in the gym, like all the staff, we all trained for this like fake powerlifting meet that we were going to have. And I did that, and I just loved that experience so much. So I was like, I definitely need to actually compete now. Started shopping around for a coach, and that's when I found Shane. But like as I said, like it was a slow burn. Like I started lifting weights like in 2015, and I didn't compete for the first time until 2021. And I'd actually had it in my head that maybe I want to compete for like years and years and years before that. And while I like I said, there were other factors, like I was competing in a different activity, like maybe I didn't have the time and stuff like that. But definitely a big part of it was just the intimidation of doing something like that. So I guess like you can say, oh, I wish I'd done it sooner, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. But I definitely would say to anyone who wants to do it, like do it before you think you're ready.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. That's something like I don't think we'll ever fully destigmatize with powerlifting, is that people are intimidated, whether it's by the individuals that engage in it or the weights that are being lifted. So I think the people that compete in it is changing somewhat because more regular looking people are doing it now, you know, which I like. And I think that's why you're seeing more of the, you know, light to middleweight divisions getting more stacked out. Like in the males, it's primarily the 83s to 105s. They're like the busiest, and the 93s in the middle there as well, because most adult males are going to fall into that cohort. And I think it's girls, I think, are somewhere between like the 63s to 72s or something like that. I think that's the female ones in the IPF. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's 76 now, and many people lament the loss of the 72 kg
really?
category.
76? Oh,
yeah.
Right. Oh, that's a bummer. But in any case, like that's so for full disclosure for everybody, I'm competing in my first IPF powerlifting meet in December. So before that, I was all just dots. It was all just formula for me. So that's going to be an interesting experience. But like that, I think because those divisions are more stacked, and I think that's, like, I've seen it anyway since I started powerlifting. I definitely think there's a big insurgence of people coming into the sport, which I think is brilliant. I hate gatekeeping in anything. And I do think there's a little bit of the, maybe more from like the super heavyweights or the real OG, like West Side Barbell type lads, like they're a little bit gatekeepy, but for the most part, I think most people are really embracing the fact that there is this little bit of a shift. Like we've seen a big shift in abs. Like there's definitely a lot less of an intimidation factor. There's, well, to a degree, it's still abs powerlifting, like, but there's definitely more like younger people coming in. People like I help run the trials when people want to come down and try for a month, and we're getting way more people coming in now than we ever did in like 2019. So I think maybe the lockdown helped with that as well, because people probably they were a lot more restricted in what they could train with. So more people probably just had a bar. We're like, oh, I could train for powerlifting. Dave that I had in recently, Dave Fustos from Fly Foot Swords, he's a Thai boxer, and during lockdown he got into powerlifting just because it was the only thing he could do. But so it's mad that you were on this journey for like training from like 2015 all the way through to, and then your first competition in 2021. That was Ab Series 7, 8.
So I did Last Chance last year was actually my first comp.
That's right, the 2 platforms.
Yes, the 2 platforms.
I was watching the live stream of that. I saw you lift.
Oh, no way.
I was at a wedding and I was watching you lift.
Yeah, I feel like that was a funny one to be at for the first time. I was actually meant to do the Ab Series comp that was that November, but I missed the ticket. I didn't realize how in demand it was going to be, which is interesting. Like I've observed as well, like, well, I've only been in this a year, but like it seems to be getting so much more popular in Ireland.
Yes.
And I've heard people in more of like the American side of things. Like I don't know if you listen to Iron Culture.
I have during the lockdown quite a bit, but not so much lately. But yeah, I have listened. I know their stuff.
Yeah, so I think they had a podcast recently about like, is powerlifting like dying out or becoming less popular, or like are we out of the golden era of powerlifting? And like maybe that's true in like America and stuff, but I feel like in Ireland anyway, we're only getting into the golden era of powerlifting now.
I agree, yeah, completely agree. Like when I competed at the first ever Ab Series, and I bought my ticket like 2 weeks after they went up because I was like, sound, I'll jump in and do a powerlifting meet. It was in like 4 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I'll just jump in. I hadn't a clue what I was doing. I knew how to squat, bench, and deadlift, but like I didn't know anything else. I practiced the commands, like that was about it. But like there was one big flight. That was all the comp was. One big massive flight. Like, so I was in the same flight as Eamon Harford and Jake Brennan, like, you know, in my first meet. So I didn't know anything that was going on. There was all these mad super heavyweight lads throwing things around the change rooms, being tick with each other and all. But since then, like you've said, the amount of demand to the potato that the Abs website runs off is shocking. Like people are like more and more all the time. Like even for my own clients, even the number of people I've brought into the sport, like I think I'm handling 11 or 12 people at the next Ab Series, you know? So from coaching maybe one or two, the most I've ever done is 8, 4 lads and 4 girls. So this is going to be, I'm actually bringing in another coach to help me because I'm going to be wrapping everybody's knees as well, you know? But like, I love that. I love that is a thing, that more and more people are coming into the sport now than ever before. And I just like that with the States. I think some of that's going to be born out of all the drama with the USAPL and the IPF, which we don't really need to delve into. I'm sure most people are more interested in you and what your background is than bullshit that's going on in America. But so your first comp was IPF Last Chance, then you did Ab Series. So how were they? I know they both took place in Abs powerlifting, but how were those experiences different? Because I know your second comp, I was handling in the back and Shane was handling you, and like it's always really interesting to see what type of lifter somebody is before they walk out. And you were like just having such a ball. You were having such a good time, and I really remember that because I was with you've met Shauna Rahman, the girl I coach. Shauna's phenomenal lifter, but absolutely shits herself before she lifts. So she's usually super quiet, like in the back, or needs to go outside and it's like, you know. And then you've got other people who are just like full on, like if you've seen the Abs Pro, Rob Spence has like lads that he just has so he can throw them around before he walks out. And then like I thought I would be a bit more aggressive, but I'm just usually like deadpan. Like I've just no excitement in my lifting at all. Like, so it's really interesting to see what the lifters are like just before they go onto the platform. Did you suspect you were going to be like as full of life as you are before you lift?
Yeah, it's interesting, like thinking about like what kind of lifter am I going to be like before going into it, like because you imagine it in your head. Well, at least I do a lot of visualization in my training because it helps me to connect the training with like the competition. Sometimes, I don't know if you ever get this when you're like just doing like some like high bar squats or something, you're like, oh, I'm so tired, what's the point? I just think like about like the announcer saying like the bar is loaded for Richeal Ria, and then it gets my adrenaline going, and like I'm able to just like get into it at that point. In terms of like, did I think I was going to be like that? I think yes. Like I think very much for me, powerlifting is like an outlet for my spirit, if that makes sense. I know that sounds kind of hippie-ish, but I mean like I feel my highs and lows very like strongly as a person, and like that feeling of like determination and aggression towards the challenges of life is something that I leverage like in multiple different areas. Like if I'm having a low month in business and I feel like, oh, what's the point? Like maybe I should give up. I will in a way express myself through my training and be like, I'm not a quitter. Like I have this spirit in me and this will to keep going. And I think that training reminds me that that's the kind of person that I am. And I think that kind of expression of like aggression, especially for women, it's very stigmatized. Like if you're to like act too aggressive as a woman, people are like, what are you doing? Like you're meant to be like quiet and feminine. Whereas like you need that drive to get places in life. And I think it's very liberating to be on the platform and like you can growl or bark or whatever the hell you do to hype yourself up before a squat and fully express like that determination that you have in you. So I really enjoy that. But I definitely think like I oscillate as a lifter. Like I'll have points where I'll like be like, oh, I'm so nervous. I get really nervous about like timings or like missing, like not realizing that I'm meant to go out next and like that kind of stuff. Where like I get really nervous before the first squat. Like I know everyone does, but like I remember at series 10? Series 10. April? What was series?
That was 10, yeah.
That was 10.
Wait, that was 9. 9, because 10 was
10 was August. Yeah. And this is 11. So yeah. I like had that feeling of like, oh, like why am I here? Like, like what the hell was I thinking? And then when you get out there and you get the first squat done, it's like peeling the band-aid off. Like you're like, okay, cool. Like we're in it now. And I really enjoy being on the platform. I feel like it's just a moment to, like, people express themselves so differently. Like, you know, Shane doesn't react at all when he does his lifts. Like, he's like very like mild in how he reacts. Or like some people like are humorous. Like Jer is very humorous when he like completes his lifts. So it's just, I like the aspect of theatre, like, and performance. And like, it's not so much that you're going out there to like put on a show for the crowd, but like it is that way, and like they can feel your energy and you can feel their energy, and it feels like a moment where you're just like fully immersed in like what's going on in front of you, and you're not like thinking. Like I'm an overthinker, so for me, like those moments where I'm purely in the moment, like 101% there and present, are very special to me. And anything that makes me do that it's pretty cool. And I definitely am excited for my lifters to experience that.
It's those 9 minutes where you're the star of the show.
Yeah.
You're the only one out there and everybody's watching, you know, and they all want to see you succeed. It's probably one of the few times most people ever experience that everybody's going, you got this. You know what I mean? They want to see it. It doesn't matter if it's you're benching 40 kilos or 140 kilos. Everybody wants to see the person on the platform succeed. And it's such a rare experience. And I wish more people did take the plunge to experience. I know more people are, but like you've obviously now experienced that. And it's even the way you speak about it, you can tell you're super passionate about powerlifting. One thing you mentioned, like particularly about like being able to embrace, you know, that bit of aggression and like, and I think that's such a good aspect of powerlifting. People should be able to take out a bit of frustration on the bar, a bit of aggression on the bar. That's phenomenal. Like it's one thing I think powerlifting does well. I think CrossFit does it the best, where there is no one cares if it's male athletes or female athletes. It's just athletes. Do you know what I mean? And like obviously they separate by gender still, which is fine. But like that, I think like no one like even the pro flight recently at the Abs Pro, like people were amped up for both. You know what I mean? People wanted to see what these lifters were capable of, and they were super competitive. Like, you know, and I like that aspect of it. I think it's the same in the Irish Powerlifting Federation. There's just as much exposure and chatter around the lighter to heavier female lifters that there are to the lighter and heavier male lifters, and I like that about powerlifting, because fundamentally it doesn't really matter who the individual, like what gender they are. It matters how competitive they are in their division. You know what I mean? What type of athlete they are. And I think that's such a good thing about these types of sports, because we have a way to standardize it and make it something that everybody can watch in context. And that's the thing. I think most people, even like a guy I train actually today, he's competing at Ab Series for the first time. He squatted like 130 for one day and he was like super jazzed about it. And then he was like, and I saw Jen Harrington or someone doing it for like 8. And I was like, God damn it. Like, I was like, well, Jen's like training for years and is like one of Ireland's top female lifters, like, so she's represented the country, she's like she's won medals, you know, so that's, and she's an abs coach. I said, you're comparing yourself to a super high standard, you know what I mean? So like don't let it get you down. But like I do like that people can see that this gives athletes of all ages, genders, whatever, an opportunity to shine. And one question I did want to ask you, between competing at the IPF, which I know we're all circling back around to again, and competing at Ab Series, were they two different experiences?
I didn't answer that question when you asked me that originally. I went on a totally different tangent.
That's fine.
I fully forgot you'd asked me that. Yeah, so they are quite different, like in terms of the ambience. And it is interesting, as you said, because when I did Last Chance, it was in abs, and this year it's going to be in abs as well, I believe.
Correct, yeah.
So I've only ever competed in abs. Yeah, so IPF, like, it has that like formality to it, like, and that's cool in a way. Like, it's like nice being like, okay, like, this is the Irish Institution of Powerlifting. Like, it's got like a very long legacy. Like, you know, it's more standardized, so everyone's in sleeves. Like, I've never lifted in wraps, so like, and as somebody who doesn't train like around people who could wrap my knees, I'm unlikely to decide to compete in wraps. And much as like I
do it.
That's what Shane said for the next abs series. I must try it. But like, it is nice knowing that like you're competing on like quite a level playing field in that regard. I suppose abs series has like an unmatched atmosphere though. Like, the level of effort that they put into putting on a show and making it really exciting, both for the competitors and for the spectators, is really unique. So I definitely appreciate both of them in their own regard. Like, I feel like there's a lot of discourse around like, there's a discourse around like USAPL versus IPF and like what's the best route to take for like what we should try and make powerlifting into. But like, why do we have to choose? Like, they're both very valuable. Like,
exactly.
They're both really cool. Some people, like, I know, like, I thrive in that really like chaotic, loud environment. It really gets my adrenaline going. But I know some people, they might find that like kind of daunting, and they might want to compete in that more like formal environment. Like, we can have like every different flavor of powerlifting competition. Like, I don't know why we have to make these like, I guess, like blanket statements that everything has to be this way or everything has to be this way. Like, having more different things is cool.
You're exactly right, and that is, I think, one of the like the benefit. I think everything you said is perfect. I love that you just literally take everything I'm about to say and just say it for me. But like that, I like the ceremony in the IPF. You know, like that, like everything they do, where you know you're doing your opens, you're qualifying for nationals, top 7 qualify for nationals, then go on to they get invitations to represent the country. I love the journey people can go on with powerlifting for that. And naturally, with the different weight classes, it opens up different opportunities. Obviously, if there's a slightly less competitive weight class, your chances are higher. And then you're from the more competitive ones, you have to just be that much better. But then the reason I love abs is just pageantry, because Jay is very adamant about it. Abs is not a federation. Abs is an event. Do you know what I mean? It's a celebration of powerlifting. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, that's. Did you watch any of the Abs Pro this year?
Yeah, I watched it from a hotel room. I was drinking beers in like a hotel robe, watching the Abs Pro. It was great.
Very fancy. But like, I got to commentate the Pro Fly, and it was just an incredible experience. You know, like, I was in charge of the fire, and we played this video at the start that built up all the hype, and people really got into it. Then we had one of Daniel Doherty came out and sang, which was just like a few people when he started were kind of like, this is a bit silly. But then they just like, Jesus Christ, this guy can sing. And then we just launched straight into the lifting. And it was just incredible. And I was actually worried for the second day that it wouldn't carry across into the Pro-Am. But it really did. The Pro-Am was banging as well. Like, there's some really great lifters there too. And that's what I loved about it. It was just had so many good moments. It's such a spectacle event. That's why I like that the Abs Pro is only once a year. And then the series gives people this chance. It's such a, like, obviously with the IPF, you have to, like, you know, you have to register for the IPF, you have to register for your weight class, which club you're with, all this around getting your ticket and all that. Whereas abs is, you get your spot, you're in, you know? And I think that's a real easy way for people to start powerlifting. Like, I've got a lot of guys that now have done enough ab series, same for myself. We've done enough ab series, built up a good amount of experience, and now I want to try the IPF, you know? But I'm interested to see, for me, like, because I don't have that experience yet. Like, I've spotted and loaded at IPF, I've coached at IPF, but I'm really interested to see how I get on being on an IPF platform and what that's like. You've got that experience now and I don't, so I'm really excited to see what that's like. But so swinging back around to Last Chance. This, as you mentioned, you're been prepping into this one now for a little while. And I think you've done things a little differently. And this is something you and I have talked about on Instagram in voice chat. You decided to bulk up a weight class. So let's talk through that. Not only just from your own individual experience, how that dialogue came about with your coach Shane's story, and just as you've talked about to me before, you've mentioned, like, typically girls are like told it's smaller, lighter, skinnier, you know. So I'd imagine that was such a mental battle, and probably is an ongoing mental battle to really embrace, you know, I'm going to become a bigger, stronger version of myself. So Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so that was a big decision. Like I had done 2 bulks before, but like I'd only gained 3 kilos of both of those bulks. So they're nearly like mini bulks. Like obviously I thank my past self for dipping my toes in the water with those mini bulks, because I think they set me up mentally to be ready for like, I guess, committing to a proper like longer bulk. The reason I made that decision was because when I started with Shane, I was about 67 kg and I competed in the 69 kg weight class for my first comp last chance. And at the time, I think I was walking around like 68.5 or 69 and I weighed in like 67.2. So I was still well fitting into that category. But I think by the time I did series 9, now that's not a weight class competition, but I did have it in mind that I also still wanted to compete in the IPF. So I was thinking like, what weight class is going to work for me at the end of the year when I do last chance. I was walking around at around 70 and like managed to weigh in at 67.7, but that was because it was a 24-hour weigh-in.
Yeah.
And at that point, like I was still relatively lean. My height is closer to the girls in the 76 kg weight class than the 69 kg weight class. I'm 5'6", so I'm a little shorter than the top people in the 76 kg weight class. I think a lot of those people are like Jessica Boutner is, obviously, I don't know, comparing myself to Jessica Boutner is pretty funny, but like she's 5'7" and she's like best in the world in that weight class, I think. So I was thinking about it and I was thinking about how much better my training goes when I'm bulking, because I've basically been bulking since I started with Shane, but like it took me a while to hit the cap of like what you could be as a 69 kg lifter. Like you can walk around at 70.5 as a person who wants to compete in 69 and do all kinds of cutting strategies to get in under. But like I was already at the top of like that kind of cap, still relatively lean, like taller, and thinking like I really wanted to keep feeling this sense of progress that I feel in my training when I'm gaining weight, and I don't want to stop bulking. But I know that if I'm going to keep bulking, I kind of need to commit to this, trying to fill out this next weight category, which was the 76 kilo class. And like the heaviest I've been in my adult life before that was like 72 kg. And that was like years and years and years ago, like taking a medication that didn't really agree with me. Like my weight fluctuated upwards. Other than that, I'd never really been above 70. So for me, the idea, like I just couldn't, like that was so far from where I'd been. It was really mentally intimidating to think about that. But I was just thinking about my growth, and I was thinking about like the messages that I put across to my lifters, and like when I'm talking to my female clients about gaining muscle and gaining weight. And I suppose as a coach, you're always trying to embody the philosophy that you're trying to teach to your clients. And I'm like, who am I to tell my clients who, like, you know, they're getting really great results, but like sometimes females can find it jarring when, say, like their legs grow or their glutes grow and then their jeans don't fit. Like that's something that you've been socialized or like trained as a female from such a young age to be like, if your clothes don't fit you anymore, that's like a terrible thing and like something to be upset about. So even though these clients are getting like the results they wanted, like they'd sign up being like, I want to grow my legs and glutes, it's still not computing. Like your brain is still telling you like, well, you still also need to fit into your jeans while growing your legs and your glutes. Where's it going to go? You know, like it has mass, like it's, you know, you're going to have to get new jeans at some point. So I'm saying this kind of stuff to my clients. And then I'm looking at my goal of wanting to be the best competitor I can be. And I'm logically like recognizing that the best thing to do would be to go up a weight class as well. Like, how am I able to, sorry, we'll go back over that. So I'm looking at like my choices as a lifter and what's going to be best for me. And I'm recognizing that 76 kilo weight class is the way to go. That's where I'm going to make the most progress. But what's holding me back? It's the fear of change. It's the fear of committing to getting bigger. So I kind of reasoned that out in my head. And then I told Shane, like when we were doing our, like, what's the plan for the year call after, I think it was in April, after AB Series 9. And I remember at the time, I actually felt so emotional saying it to him. I actually nearly teared up a little bit on the phone because I was like, I really committed to this now. Before when I did bulks, I was like, oh, I'll bulk until I don't feel comfortable anymore and then I can just do a cut. Whereas this time I was like, well, it's not that I have to get to 76, but I'm setting the goal of like competing in this category. I know getting as close to that as possible is what's best for me. So I've really committed to a much bigger change than I'd ever committed to up front before. So that was really intimidating. And the interesting thing is, like, I worried so much about like not feeling good in my own skin, like later on in the bulk, but like that hasn't been the case at all. Like, yes, there was challenging moments. And in fact, it was actually more challenging to begin with than it is now, because now I'm so invested in performance, and bulking's actually gotten really, really hard for me in terms of like my body's kind of like fighting me. It doesn't want to go much higher than it is now. Like the amount of calories I'm having to eat is a bit ridiculous at this point. So I've actually noticed the opposite, which is now I get really annoyed when the scales don't go up, which is so weird because like even when I was bulking like before in previous bulks, or even when I first started with Shane, like the scale would go up and I'd have to reason with myself that that was a good thing. I'd be like, okay, like it's heavier. My lifetime of experience telling me I should be smaller is telling me this is bad. But my logical brain that knows that my goal is to be stronger is trying to tell me this is good. Now I get on the scales and if it doesn't go up, I'm like, I'm so mad.
But that represents such progress.
Yeah.
Like those are the, like you spoke earlier about like, you know, for people during prep, you know, you could have all the medals and the trophies and the total, or you could have all these other auxiliary benefits. And I suppose it's probably something similar with the bulk. Like there probably is a degree of discomfort you're going to have to go through, both physically and mentally. Do you know one thing you posted that I actually loved? You were talking about reframing how you saw things. Like, so you knew, for example, certain clothes might not fit the same way. So you look at it as, well, I get to get a new wardrobe. I get to get new things. And it's small management techniques like that to say, well, I can reframe this as a positive. You know, I think those things are so valuable to people. And like that, I'd imagine it was quite tough as a girl, like as you mentioned, growing up. And I assume most girls experience, I think most people in general, but I think there's probably a bit more like self-pressure on girls as well. Like they put a lot on themselves to look a certain way or be a certain way. And there's a lot more comparison to like their smaller friends or skinnier friends. And I think like, let's say we take the gym into consideration here, because I think the gym space stereotypically for many, many years, many generations was typically a male space, and now it's become a shared space. And I think that's to the benefit of everybody. The whole idea of bulking for girls even is still a relatively new thing. So you're still fighting generations of stigmatization. Like, and it's small things people don't know about. Like they don't think about like that. Like, I'll give you a very brief example of something I've experienced. So I'm cutting into the comp because I want to compete under 93. And it's just so I can be competitive. Like I looked at the 105s and I was like, no, thanks. You know, I will get destroyed in the 105s. So this is like my best chance to qualify for nationals next year. So there's a logic behind it. And I will say, I definitely think after like eye surgery and things like that, and bulking for basically the entirety of 2021, I had fluff to lose and I was happy to lose it. But I've noticed now people have been like, oh, geez, you're looking great. Like you're looking lean, you're looking thin, or you're looking like you're after losing a good bit of weight. So, but there's that part of my brain that's like, so before you thought I was a fat bastard, you know? Mm-hmm. Like have people made any, even like harmless two-dimensional remarks to you that you can kind of see the other side of, or has everyone generally been quite positive about it?
So it's so interesting that you mentioned that about like people giving like harmless comments, but like there's that part of you that's just like internalizing it, being like, okay, like what does this mean then? Like if I decide to bulk later, then do you think I look shit? Like, because that is always the double-edged sword of giving a compliment. And I think that's why, like, you know, it's not bad necessarily to like compliment like something about someone's appearance, but I think you do need to know the context. So for example, like if I have a friend and I know that they are bulking and I'm like, oh, you're looking big, because I know that that's their goal. So what I'm actually saying is, well done, you seem to be successful in the thing that you're pursuing, not like my opinion is that this is the superior look for you, if you get what I mean.
For sure.
What did you ask me?
Well,
I'm on a tangent.
Don't worry about it. Like it's one of the you know what Dan was saying it to me, it's about this room. You just get kind of like sucked in a little bit, you know, because we've got the headphones on and things like that, you'll kind of get lost in the sauce. One of my boys says when he's in coaching. But one of the aspects of it I'm saying is like, for example, if I was to say to you, right, well, you know, you're bulking, but you look great. So I'm saying, despite the fact that you are actively trying to gain weight, you look good, right? So that does kind of have a two-sided meaning. It means that we would always perceive weight gain to be, if people are saying you're gaining weight, we already perceive that as a negative. Even though in some cases, for some people, that's actually like probably the best thing they could do. Like for you as a powerlifter and to develop further, that's like such a massive bonus. Like this will probably, like I've seen it in your training on Instagram. Like you're I believe on bench, you're repping your 1 rep max. Is that right? Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like bench is typically a tough one to grow outside of going up weight classes. So that's a phenomenal bonus, you know? And as you mentioned, when you were talking to Shane, your coach, about the phone call you had where you were saying, I'm going to dedicate to this, and it triggers that like emotional response. Like that obviously speaks to how much it means to you to put that much of yourself into something. Because it's not just something that affects you in the gym. It obviously affects other facets of your life, you know? So I think it's very interesting. Firstly, it's very admirable to engage in that, and then also to talk about it online, because I would hope, even if for 1 or 2 people it destigmatizes what they think of bulking, that's already a massive win.
Yeah, I think people like have this idea that like if you get smaller, you're inherently going to feel better. I'm not saying weight loss doesn't make some people feel better, but I'm more of the opinion that setting a goal for yourself and adhering to that regardless of the challenges is what makes you feel better. So I expected myself to have a much worse body image like at this point of the bulk than I do, but I don't. And I've noticed that in people who bulk, who are my clients as well. Like they'll say to me like, wow, I actually feel really good in my skin despite the fact that I've gained X number of kilos. Like I have like reached this kind of like self-acceptance, which I think a lot of people wrongly assume when someone says self-acceptance, they mean like complacency or like a lack of desire to grow. But it's more like, I think what I've discovered is I feel really chill and happy with multiple different versions of myself. I'm like, this shape is cool. If I decide to cut in the future for whatever reason, that shape will be cool. All these versions of me are cool and they have their pros and their cons. It's winter right now. I'm glad to have higher body fat. It's very cold outside. You know, like I like having food flexibility. There are some things I prefer about how I look when I'm like heavier. There's some things I prefer about how I look when I'm lighter. And you can't have both of these things at the same time. Yeah. So instead of focusing on what you don't like about the current position you're in, you can accept those things and focus on what you do like. And I think that that's the power of bulking for me anyway, is it teaches you that you don't need to tie yourself to leanness in order to feel confident, in order to feel like you look good, and like in order to feel like worthy. You can instead like actually like gain so much more confidence through bulking, because realistically, you're only going to get so much confidence from how you look. A lot of it is going to be like deeper inner work to do with like, how do I feel about myself in social interactions, or like, what do I think the value I can offer to the world is like, and like, yes, I'm not against like trying to like look your best from time to time, and like focusing on appearance isn't inherently a bad thing, but there's so much of an excessive focus on appearance, I think, when it comes to confidence. And instead, when you take away that piece where I can't just rely on the idea that I'm going to be lean to feel confident, you're focusing on like what other stuff makes me feel confident. And that is genuinely, for the most part, I think the stuff that grows that like deep inner confidence that people have. Like, you know, I don't know if you've ever met somebody who they might not be the most conventionally attractive, but they have a deep, deep charisma. They're funny, like they're warm with people, like they, you know, like they're just so confident in their presentation to other people. I think that working on that deep inner confidence is much longer lasting, because like we're all going to get like old. We're not going to be like youthful forever. You know, you can't rely on focusing mostly on how you look as your source of confidence. So I feel like by detaching yourself from something that you've been told your whole life, okay, like leaner is better, more beautiful, and something that's going to make you feel more confident, and you're actually going to say like, do you know what? I want to, you know, deadlift 160 kilos, and that's what I care about, and I'm going to go against like these societal messages and pursue what I want instead. That is a sense of resolve towards the person that you truly are, and detaching from the person that you think other people want you to be.
That's put it perfectly. And I would love for more people, particularly like young girls getting into the sport or even just in the gym in general, to really like hear that message. Because I'll actually tell you a little story here. Another one of the lads that records this podcast here, Stephen Tierney, the Lean In podcast, he has been doing a bit of a series with his co-workers from STPT. And last year at one stage, they did a photo shoot together. So all the coaches, they did their cut together. They did their excessive amounts of cardio. And they've now been talking about the fallout and ramifications, like how terrible they felt, how their social lives went to shit, the rebound after that, how some of them had previous, negative relationships with food that was exacerbated tenfold because of that. And one of the things with the conversations I was having with Dan, the producer here in the back, Mr. Producer, he and I were speaking about some of these things, and was telling one of the things I loved about powerlifting is how it actually encourages people that sometimes growth is a good thing. It's not always about shredding and having a six-pack. It's like, let's look at how strong you can be. Let's look at how incredible of an athlete you are. It's not strictly about how you're presented to everybody else in, whether you're top off or not. Because for the most part, like most people you're interacting with are going to see what your clothes on, so hopefully. So I like how you've really sold it as while there are challenges to overcome, especially in internally for the dialogue you've probably had with yourself for a very long time, and you've managed to overcome that, and you see the pros in this and how that's going to pay off in the long run, and how it's paying off like the day to day. You love yourself and all the versions of yourself, which is phenomenal. And I like how that kind of like offsets a lot of what Steve and his team are talking about, like some of the real downsides to when they cut excessively. One of the girls was talking about how she was expecting to get lean and look like shredded, but she was like, I actually didn't have that much muscle underneath, so I just looked skinny, and it was, I'm sure that was quite a big realization moment, because I'm sure you've probably had it in the gym. Every time I talk to anybody in the gym, I'm cutting. I need to cut. I need to shed a few pounds. It's like, man, maybe if you grow first, you'll have something to show underneath it all. Like a lot of my guys are always talking to me about wanting to cut, and I'm like, have something to cut too. Like you look good now and you can grow more. Now, don't get me wrong, people can do what they want, but it's understanding what the intrinsic motivations are behind that. And I like that you, in your coaching call with Shane, gave it a year essentially to say, I'm going to grow into this weight class. And that's such a massive dedication. So well done on that. I'd imagine that was an uphill battle, but like, we're only a couple of weeks out now, so we'll get to see all the hard work pay off. But look, as you said, it's been its own reward. I'd imagine I'm right in saying that.
Oh, 100%. Like, I feel like it has been so valuable in so many ways to like be on this journey. Like, and I haven't actually managed to get as close to my weight class as I thought I would, which like wasn't actually in the end down to the limitations of my mind, which I thought was going to be the limiting factor. I thought the thing that was going to stop me from gaining the weight I needed to gain was me getting uncomfortable and quitting. In reality, like that didn't happen. Like what happened was like now I'm at the point where I'm eating 3,500 calories a day, and I'm gaining, like, if I'm lucky, 0.1 kg per week.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a lot of food.
It's a lot of food. Like I'd say, like I have, 3 jobs. So first job, PT, second job, training, third job, eating. It's definitely become like a full-time job at this point, and like there are other reasons why I might need a break, like in terms of like digestion, or in terms of like just like how much of a time commitment it is to eat that much food. And like, I don't know how extreme you've ever taken bulking, but when you get to the point where you're like having to do things like reduce your veg.
Yes.
Because you're like,
yep.
I need to fit in more like rice or like apple
yep.
juice or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, like when it starts to, like, that's fine for a period of time, but I think you can't keep, in the same way that like you can't keep doing like aggressive cutting strategies for a prolonged period of time, you probably could only keep doing those things around bulking for a certain amount of time. But I'm really happy to say that, like, even if I do take a break and maybe I never get all the way up to 76, right? I'm so proud to say that it wasn't my mind that was the limiting factor, and that at the end of this journey, I'm now like would love to gain more weight. So I feel like, seeing as that was the number one challenge that I anticipated, I would say that I have successfully entirely overcome that challenge, which is really, really cool.
Well, and like I said, that is a massive win. It speaks volumes of your mental fortitude, and you've played it out this long. I'm really excited to see how you got on at Last Chance. We've been talking a while. I'm going to wrap it up. I feel like we had like so much more to touch on as well. I feel like there's way more we could have spoke about. So like I think that speaks volume to your competitive debating and your ability to articulate yourself. So thank you very much for joining us. But look, before we go, best of luck at IPF. Please tell people at home, if they're listening, what your plans are, where they can get you, all the good stuff. I'll link it all below as well.
So if you would like to follow my prep or maybe reach out for some coaching, you can find me on Instagram at Richeal Fitness or Icheal. Funny name, I know. I'm sure it'll be in the bio of this podcast.
Gang, thank you so much for tuning in to the Iron Mindset with Richeal Ria. I knew I'd get it wrong. This is why I ask everyone to give me everything phonetically. Gang, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again with another one soon.